Welcome again, students. We're here to look at this problem, how to find the midpoint of a line segment. And the question is put to us. Find the midpoint of the line segment as shown in the Cartesian plane below. So we're just given a line segment, which is just a part of a line, right? And we're asked to find the midpoint or the center of this line. Right, and there's a formula that we can use for that, right? And remember now that the midpoint is like a point. It's just like any other point. It's which receives two coordinates, right? Or which has to be discovered by two coordinates. So the midpoint formula goes like this. M is for midpoint, and that is going to be equal to x1 plus x2 over 2, comma. You notice this comma here suggests that when you finally get your answer, it's going to be as a coordinate, right? So y1 plus y2 over 2. Right, so all we need to do now is substitute the values. Just substitute the values, right? So when we go back to this now, we see that when we look at the coordinates for this point, what are the coordinates for this point? It will be minus 2, 5. So it will be minus 2, 5. For this point, let's call it A. And for this point B, the coordinate is going to be 3, negative 2. So 3, comma, negative 2. So we know that this is going to be x2, x sub 2, y sub 2, and this is going to be x sub 1, y sub 1, all right? So we can substitute these values into the formula. So let's go now. So x sub 1 is going to be minus 2, and x sub 2 is going to be 3. Right? Over 2. Y now. Y sub 1 y sub 1 is 5, and y sub 2 is minus 2. And from here we can work out now this. So you have a minus 2 and you have a positive 3. That's the same thing as 3 minus 2, right? So that's going to be 1, comma, and this is going to be 5 minus 2, which is with 3. 3 over 2. So if you want to put it in decimal form, it's going to be 0.5, 1.5. So that will be your midpoint. Sorry about the focus. Not sure why this thing is not focusing properly. So you get the gist now. You just put in the values, minus 2 plus 3 over 2, which is really 3 minus 2. So that works out to 1 over 2, which is a half. 5 minus 2 is 3. 3 over 2 is 1.5. You put it in decimal format. If you go back to the graph, if m is so the point is 0.5x, 1.5y. So let's go to 0.5x, which will be half of this. As I can see here, it's half of this. This is 1. So 0.5 is between here. And 1.5 would be where? Would be here. Just about here. This is 1.5. So when you move, so 1.5x, 0.5x to 1.5y will carry the point here. So in actual fact, this is going to be the midpoint. 0.5 to 1.5. That will actually be your midpoint. As you can see, look at it, you can actually see that the distance here, between here and here and here and here, is roughly the same, right? So this would have been your midpoint. Right here would have been your midpoint, right? So that's by using the formula, which is really a shorter method. It's a shorter method than if you were to use different methods to actually locate the midpoint. Because in fact, we could confirm this by setting up two triangles like this, one at the top and one here, and then we find their hypotenuse. So we'd find the hypotenuse of both triangles, and no doubt they'll be the same. Or you could find the apart from finding the hypotenuse, you could, using the Pythagoras theorem, you could also determine the slope. Both slopes will be the same for both triangles, since the slopes are on the same line. Obviously, both slopes will have the same value. So I trust you got a better picture of how to actually determine the midpoint.